The crisis of modernity and the shift toward the left hemisphere, in the words of Iain. It seems to me that we face very grave crises indeed, and that if we are to survive, we need not just a few new measures, but a complete change of heart and mind. This statement speaks to the profound existential crises that modern society is grappling with. Today, crises, not just in terms of politics, economics, or the environment, but at the deepest level of human experience. McGilchrist is suggesting that the problems we face cannot be solved by mere incremental change or superficial reforms. Instead, we need a radical shift in how we think, how we perceive the world, and how we engage with one another. At the core of this crisis, there seems to be a fundamental sickness or psychological malady that has infected the very fabric of society. This sickness is not one that can be diagnosed by a medical professional, but rather, it is a deep, pervasive mindset that shapes how individuals and institutions interact with the world. It is a mindset that, according to McGilchrist, is largely influenced by a growing over-reliance on one side of the brain, the left hemisphere. McGilchrist, a psychiatrist and neuroscientist, offers a compelling hypothesis to explain this phenomenon. He argues that modern society has become increasingly dominated by the left hemisphere of the brain, and this dominance has resulted in a distorted, reductionist worldview that hampers our ability to fully engage with and understand the world. The left hemisphere is often associated with logic, analysis, and controlled qualities that are necessary for survival in a world that demands precision, organization, and manipulation of resources. However, when the left hemisphere's perspective dominates, it creates a mindset that sees the world as a collection of objects to be controlled, analyzed, and manipulated. This mindset leads to a disconnection from the world's deeper complexity, its mysteries, and its interconnectedness. The modern world, in its obsession with efficiency, power, and control, often ignores or undervalues the qualities associated with the right hemisphere of the brain: empathy, intuition, creativity, and a holistic sense of understanding. McGilchrist's hypothesis posits that this over-reliance on the left hemisphere is not a mere quirk of human nature, but rather a sickness that affects both individuals and societies as a whole. This sickness is rooted in a profound imbalance, overemphasis on one mode of thinking to the exclusion of others. The result is a world that is increasingly fragmented, disconnected, and driven by narrow, self-serving goals that undermine collective well-being. The rise of individualism, the obsession with success and achievement, and the disconnection from nature and community are all symptoms of this larger issue. In his influential works, The Master and His Emissary and The Matter Within, McGilchrist argues that the human brain is bipartite, divided into two asymmetrical hemispheres that have evolved to handle different aspects of human experience. The right hemisphere is associated with broad, open attention, allowing us to engage with the world in its full complexity. It is concerned with understanding the world as a whole, and with connecting the various parts of our experience into a coherent, integrated whole. The left hemisphere, by contrast, specializes in focused, narrow attention, ideal for solving specific problems, controlling resources, and achieving immediate goals. Both hemispheres are crucial to human functioning, but when one hemisphere becomes dominant, it can distort the way we experience and engage with the world. The asymmetry between the two hemispheres is not a mere biological curiosity. It is an evolutionary adaptation that allows us to navigate the complexities of life. The left hemisphere is adept at focusing on specific tasks such as acquiring food, solving problems, and manipulating objects, while the right hemisphere ensures that we maintain a broader awareness of our surroundings, which is essential for avoiding danger and maintaining social harmony. The interplay between these two modes of attention allows us to balance our need for control with our need for understanding, survival with connection. However, in the modern world, it seems that the left hemisphere has gained an undue amount of power. This shift is not the result of a physical injury or brain damage, but rather a cultural and societal evolution that has gradually tilted the balance in favor of the left hemisphere's way of seeing and interacting with the world. McGilchrist suggests that this shift can be traced to several factors, including the rise of science, technology, and bureaucracy, all of which align with the strengths of the left hemisphere. Modern science, with its focus on reductionism and the breaking down of complex phenomena into their constituent parts, is particularly suited to the analytical, logical processes of the left hemisphere. Technology, especially in the form of computers and smartphones, requires narrow, focused attention, further reinforcing the dominance of the left hemisphere. Bureaucracy, with its emphasis on rules, procedures, and efficiency, also aligns with the left hemisphere's strengths, as it thrives in environments that prioritize control and predictability. The consequences of this imbalance are not just intellectual but deeply social and psychological. When society shifts toward left hemisphere dominance, the human experience is increasingly reduced to mere tasks, goals, and outcomes. The rise of individualism, with its emphasis on personal achievement and success, has eroded the sense of collective well-being. In a world governed by left hemisphere logic, relationships become transactional rather than relational. People are no longer seen as complex individuals with emotional and psychological needs, but rather as units to be optimized for productivity and success. This mindset fosters a sense of disconnection, not only from others, but also from the natural world and our own inner selves. The pursuit of efficiency and control becomes an end in itself, with little regard for the broader implications of our actions. The rise of technology, especially social media, has further exacerbated this sense of disconnection. Social media platforms encourage people to curate their lives for external validation, prioritizing image and achievement over genuine connection and emotional fulfillment. The result is a society where individuals are increasingly isolated, struggling to form meaningful relationships or connect with the deeper aspects of their own humanity. Moreover, the dominance of the left hemisphere has deeply impacted education, work, and productivity. The educational system, with its emphasis on measurable outcomes, standardized testing, and rote learning, mirrors the characteristics of the left hemisphere. It prioritizes logic, structure, and analysis, leaving little room for creativity, critical thinking, or holistic understanding. In the workplace, the focus on efficiency, productivity, and the bottom line has resulted in a culture of burnout and alienation. People are treated as cogs in a machine, valued only for their ability to produce results. The emphasis on control and manipulation has led to the exploitation of both people and resources, creating a cycle of disconnection and Internally, the overdominance of the left hemisphere has profound effects on the individual psyche. The left hemisphere's rational, analytical approach to the world can suppress emotions and deny the complexity of the human experience. As McGilchrist notes, the left hemisphere tends to see things in black and white, often dismissing ambiguity and emotion as This tendency leads to a society where emotional well-being is undervalued, and mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and burnout become increasingly prevalent. People are pressured to meet external standards of success while being disconnected from their own emotional needs. This imbalance is not just psychological, but spiritual. The left hemisphere's reductionist worldview focused on control and manipulation erodes the sense of wonder and awe that is central to human experience. The right hemisphere, by contrast, fosters a deeper connection to the world's mysteries, beauty, and interconnectedness. It is through the right hemisphere's lens that we appreciate the complexity of nature, art, and human relationships. When we lose touch with this holistic, empathetic way of seeing the world, life becomes shallow and utilitarian, stripped of its deeper meaning. In light of these profound impacts, McGilchrist's work calls for a re-evaluation of how we engage with the world. Reclaiming the balance between the two hemispheres is not just a personal endeavor, but a societal necessity. By integrating the strengths of both hemispheres' analytical thinking and empathy, logic and creativity, control and understanding, we can create a more connected, compassionate, and meaningful society. Only by embracing the full potential of the human brain can we hope to address the crises we face and restore a sense of balance and purpose to our lives. The role of the left hemisphere in modern society. To understand the implications of left hemisphere dominance, it is essential to first explore how the two hemispheres of the brain function and how they differ in their approach to the world. Popular culture often simplifies the roles of the left and right hemispheres, associating the left hemisphere with logic, language, analysis, and reason, while attributing the right hemisphere to emotions, intuition, and creativity. While these associations are rooted in some truth, McGilchrist challenges the oversimplification of this narrative, explaining that both hemispheres contribute to virtually all mental activities, albeit in different ways. The left hemisphere specializes in narrow, focused attention, ideal for tasks that require precision, analysis, and control. It excels in breaking down complex problems into smaller, more manageable parts. This mode of thinking is essential for solving concrete, immediate issues, such as gathering resources, navigating obstacles, and fulfilling immediate needs. However, the left hemisphere's focus on the specific and the concrete comes at the cost of the broader context, leaving little room for understanding the complexity of the world as a whole. The right hemisphere, in contrast, is associated with broad, open attention that allows us to process and integrate complex, diverse information. It is concerned not just with individual objects or tasks, but with understanding relationships, context, and meaning. The right hemisphere's attention is more exploratory, receptive, and empathetic, helping us make sense of the world in its entirety, rather than focusing on specific, isolated aspects. It is the right hemisphere that enables us to appreciate the interconnectedness of all things and to perceive the subtle nuances of human experience. McGilchrist uses the example of a bird searching for food to illustrate the complementary roles of the two hemispheres in navigating the challenges of survival. When a bird searches for food, it uses its left hemisphere to focus on the task at hand, finding and capturing the worms and bugs it needs to survive. But if the bird only relied on this narrow focus, it would be vulnerable to predators lurking nearby. Therefore, the bird also engages its right hemisphere to maintain awareness of its surroundings, keeping an eye out for potential threats. This dual deployment of attention, narrow and focused on food, but also broad and open to the environment, illustrates the vital role both hemispheres play in maintaining balance and ensuring survival. This balance between the left and right hemispheres is essential for human functioning. The left hemisphere allows us to focus on specific tasks and problems, which is vital for achieving goals and controlling our environment. The right hemisphere, however, helps us understand the broader picture, integrating diverse experiences and making sense of complexity. Together, these two modes of attention enable us to navigate the world effectively, balancing the need for control with the need for understanding. However, in modern society, it seems that the left hemisphere has increasingly come to dominate how we approach the world. This shift has profound consequences, not just for individuals, but for society as a whole. The dominance of the left hemisphere is evident in many of the structures and systems that define modern life, particularly in science, technology, and bureaucracy, domains that prioritize control, efficiency, and rational analysis. One of the most significant forces driving this dominance is the rise of the reductive materialist paradigm in science. Reductionism is the belief that complex phenomena can be fully understood by breaking them down into their constituent parts. While this approach has yielded great successes in many areas of science and technology, it is also heavily reliant on the strengths of the left hemisphere analysis, categorization, and mechanistic thinking. The reductive materialist worldview has led to the belief that the world is a collection of discrete, independent objects, which can be understood and manipulated through scientific inquiry and technological innovation. While this approach has brought about extraordinary advancements, it has also contributed to a reductionist, fragmented view of reality, where the complexities and interconnections of the world are often overlooked or undervalued. In addition to science, technology has become another major driver of left hemisphere dominance. The rise of computers, smartphones, and other technological devices has created a world in which narrow, focused attention is not just desirable but required. Modern technology demands precision, efficiency, and control, all of which align with the left hemisphere's strengths. While technology has undoubtedly improved our lives in many ways, it has also contributed to a society that increasingly prioritizes the manipulation and control of the environment, often at the expense of understanding its deeper complexities. Furthermore, the bureaucratization of society has reinforced the dominance of the left hemisphere. Bureaucracy, with its emphasis on rules, procedures, and efficiency, thrives in environments where the left hemisphere's need for order and predictability is valued above all else. In a bureaucratic system, individuals are often treated as units within a larger system, their actions and behaviors governed by impersonal rules and regulations. This system reflects the left hemisphere's tendency to categorize, compartmentalize, and control, reducing human experience to a set of processes and procedures that can be measured and optimized. The rise of left hemisphere dominance has also led to a shift in how we view the self and others. In a society that prioritizes efficiency and control, individuals are increasingly seen as objects to be optimized for productivity rather than as complex, multifaceted beings with emotional, psychological, and spiritual needs. This mindset contributes to a sense of disconnection and alienation, As people are increasingly isolated from one another and from the world around them, relationships become transactional, based on utility and efficiency, rather than relational and empathetic. The consequences of left hemisphere dominance extend beyond the social and cultural spheres and manifest in individual psychology. The overemphasis on logic, control, and efficiency can lead to a suppression of emotion and creativity. The left hemisphere's tendency to focus on the specific and the immediate often leaves little room for reflection, introspection, or the exploration of the deeper meaning of life. As a result, individuals may become disconnected from their inner selves, struggling with anxiety, depression, and a sense of meaninglessness. Furthermore, the left hemisphere's focus on manipulation and control can foster a sense of powerlessness and frustration. As people become increasingly caught up in the demands of a left hemisphere-dominated world, they may begin to feel as though their lives are defined by external forces beyond their control. The rise of stress and burnout is a direct result of this constant pressure to achieve, perform, and conform to societal expectations, all while suppressing the need for emotional connection and introspection. This over-reliance on the left hemisphere also manifests in our approach to education. The modern educational system, with its emphasis on standardized testing, measurable outcomes, and rote memorization, is perfectly suited to the strengths of the left hemisphere. However, this focus on analysis and categorization leaves little room for the development of creativity, empathy, and critical thinking qualities that are essential for a well-rounded, fulfilled life. Students are taught to focus on the right answers rather than the process of inquiry, reflection, and personal growth. The imbalance between the two hemispheres is also evident in the way we approach creativity and problems. The left hemisphere's focused on precision, efficiency, and control can stifle the creative process, which requires openness, exploration, and the ability to embrace uncertainty. Creativity thrives when we allow ourselves to step outside the confines of narrow left hemisphere thinking and engage with the world in a more expansive, holistic way. The rise of burnout and creative blocks is a direct result of the overemphasis on left hemisphere thinking, which limits the freedom and flexibility needed for creative breakthroughs. In light of these challenges, McGilchrist's work calls for a rebalancing of the two hemispheres. To address the crises of modern society, we must learn to integrate the strengths of both hemispheres using the left hemisphere's focus and analytical abilities alongside the right hemisphere's broader, more empathetic understanding of the world. This integration can lead to a more balanced, connected, and creative society, where we are not only able to control and manipulate our environment, but also understand, appreciate, and connect with it in meaningful ways. The consequences of left hemisphere dominance and the path to reclaiming balance. The consequences of left hemisphere dominance extend far beyond the individual. They permeate the very structures of our societies, influencing the way we interact with one another, the environment, and even our sense of purpose in life. When the left hemisphere, with its focus on logic, analysis, and control, becomes the predominant mode of thinking, it tends to reduce complex, multifaceted issues to simplistic solutions, stripping away the deeper, more nuanced aspects of reality. While this approach may offer certain efficiencies in solving immediate problems, it fails to grasp the broader, interconnected truths that are necessary for genuine understanding and meaningful progress. One of the most glaring consequences of left hemisphere dominance is the rise of a society that prizes efficiency, control, and individual achievement above all else. This societal shift is rooted in a worldview that sees the world as a collection of discrete, isolated objects, each of which can be manipulated and controlled. The very idea of relationships, whether between individuals, communities, or nations, becomes transactional, based on utility and measurable outcomes rather than mutual care, understanding, and collaboration. As a result, social bonds weaken, and the collective well-being of society is undermined by a pervasive sense of competition, alienation, and disconnection. This shift has had profound psychological consequences as well. When we become overly reliant on the left hemisphere's approach to the world, we begin to internalize its values. The belief that success is measured by achievement, that our worth is determined by what we produce, and that emotions and human connection are secondary to efficiency and control. This mindset erodes our sense of self-worth, leading to an increased prevalence of anxiety, depression, and burnout. Individuals are pressured to meet external standards of success, pushing them further away from their authentic selves and deeper into the mechanical, impersonal rhythms of modern life. The left hemisphere's dominance also manifests in our cultural attitudes toward emotions and empathy. The left hemisphere is not inherently lacking in empathy, but its emphasis on objectivity and control often leads to the suppression of emotional depth. When emotions are seen as distractions or weaknesses, individuals become less capable of understanding and responding to the emotional needs of others. This lack of empathy exacerbates social isolation, fostering a culture where individuals are more likely to prioritize their own needs over those of others, creating a vicious cycle of disconnection and misunderstanding. Another significant consequence of left hemisphere dominance is the diminishing role of the right hemisphere's expansive, integrative attention in shaping our view of the world. The right hemisphere is essential for understanding the broader context and for appreciating the richness and complexity of human experience. It allows us to engage with the world in a more holistic, empathetic way, fostering a sense of interconnectedness and a deeper understanding of our place in the world. However, when the left hemisphere dominates, the ability to see the world as a whole, with all its intricacies and interconnections, is diminished. This results in a fragmented worldview, where individuals and societies focus on isolated problems without fully considering the long-term consequences or the larger implications of their actions. The overemphasis on control and manipulation, which is characteristic of the left hemisphere, also leads to a dangerous disregard for the complexities of the natural world. The environment is increasingly seen as a resource to be exploited for human gain, rather than a system that we are a part of and must protect. This mindset has contributed to the environmental crises we face today: climate change, deforestation, pollution, and the loss of biodiversity issues that are the direct result of the mechanistic, reductionist worldview that dominates modern society. In addition to environmental degradation, the rise of technocratic governance, where decision-making is driven by scientific and technological expertise, has further entrenched the dominance of the left hemisphere. While science and technology have brought about tremendous advances in medicine, communication, and industry, they are also heavily reliant on left hemisphere thinking. Technocracy, by its nature, prioritizes control, efficiency, and quantifiable results over the subjective, experiential aspects of human life. As a result, individuals are increasingly governed by abstract systems and algorithms, rather than by empathy, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of the human condition. If left hemisphere dominance continues unchecked, the future of humanity is at risk. The very mechanisms that have allowed us to manipulate and control our environment, our scientific knowledge, technological capabilities, and bureaucratic systems may become the very things that lead to our downfall. As McGilchrist warns, the more we focus on controlling the world, the less we understand it. The fallacy is that our ability to control the world is mistaken for an understanding of it. This is akin to the story of the sorcerer's apprentice, where the desire to control nature, without understanding it, results in chaos and destruction. The solution to this crisis lies in reclaiming balance between the two hemispheres of the brain. McGilchrist's work suggests that we must restore the collaborative relationship between the left and right hemispheres, allowing both modes of attention to work in harmony. This is not a call to discard the analytical, focused thinking of the left hemisphere, but rather to recognize its limitations and integrate it with the broader, more empathetic perspective of the right hemisphere. The path to this balance begins with a shift in how we approach education, work, and daily life. In education, we must move away from an overemphasis on standardized testing and rote memorization, and instead cultivate creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence. Students should be encouraged to engage with the world in a holistic way, embracing the mysteries and complexities of life, while also developing the analytical skills necessary to solve concrete problems. This shift will help foster individuals who are not only intelligent and capable, but also empathetic, creative, and self-aware. In the workplace, the focus should shift from mere productivity and efficiency to the well-being of individuals and the community as a whole. Organizations should prioritize collaboration, emotional intelligence, and creativity over narrow measures of success. A more balanced approach to work would allow individuals to thrive both personally and professionally, without sacrificing their emotional health or sense of fulfillment. On a societal level, we must recognize the value of the right hemisphere's contributions, its ability to understand the world in its complexity, to empathize with others, and to connect with the natural world in meaningful ways. This means shifting away from a purely reductionist utilitarian worldview and embracing a more integrative, holistic approach to governance, economics, and environmental stewardship. Finally, we must re-engage with the deeper aspects of human life, our emotions, our creativity, our spirituality. We must create spaces in our lives where we can reflect, connect, and grow beyond the demands of modern, left hemisphere-dominated culture. This requires stepping back from the constant pressure to achieve and succeed, and instead embracing the richness of human experience, with all its complexities, ambiguities, and mysteries. In conclusion, the crisis of modern society is not merely a political, economic, or environmental issue, but a profound psychological and cultural imbalance. The overdominance of the left hemisphere has led to a fragmented, reductionist worldview that has disconnected us from our true selves, each other, and the world around us. By reclaiming balance between the two hemispheres, we can restore a more holistic, integrated approach to life, one that values creativity, empathy, understanding, and connection over control, manipulation, and efficiency. This shift is not just necessary for individual well-being, but for the survival and flourishing of society as a whole.